Melanie Nowak is the author of the venomous vampire series Almost Human, a happily married mom of two boys, and also a master's degree in library and information science. Originally from Long Island, she now lives with her family on a peaceful mountaintop in the forest of upstate New York. She has always had a vivid imagination and a fascination for the paranormal, acting and singing, and loves of hers as well. However, upon receiving the idea for her Almost Human series in 2003, she discovered a previously unknown passion for writing. Now, she put her overactive imagination to good use, creating characters she loves, and she gets to play all of the parts. And in today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, excitement, and joy to have on the show today, Melanie Nowak. How are you doing today, Melanie?
Hi, Peter. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very fine,
I'm
really.
excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm very excited as well that we are here to sit down across continents to discuss your amazing written bodies of amazing literature work from the first to the second to the third, and God knows when we're going to stop. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, it's great to be here. I'm
Yeah,
excited to introduce everyone to my venomous vampires. They would love some new blood.
absolutely, the will. Thank you. So, Melanie, I'd like us to start today's conversation and interview with your book, the one titled Fatal Infatuation, which is the first book in the Almost Human Astrology series on Amazon. Now, I wanted to ask you what inspired the making of Fatal Infatuation? What inspired the making of this series also in its entirety? If you can run us to the background, the foundation of this, that would be great.
Sure. Well, yeah, this is book one. It's called Fatal Infatuation.
Mm.
And there are actually nine books in the series so far. I'm planning to have 12. They're written in trilogies. And a few things came together to bring Almost Human and my venomous vampires to life.
Mm.
I've always been fascinated by the paranormal and loved making up stories, but I'm also an animal lover and I've always liked bats. And vampire bats have an anticoagulant in their saliva called Draculin,
Mm.
named for Count Dracula, that stops blood from clotting when they drink blood from animals. And I
Wow.
always thought that would be very useful for vampires.
Mm.
And it would also be useful if vampires had some kind of a drug in with that anticoagulant in their saliva, something that would calm the victim and make them even maybe willing to be bitten. And I always wondered about thrall. In old movies, you always see vampires have people under their power, they hypnotize them, but they never explain how it works. So I
Mm.
started thinking, well, what if vampires had a venom like a snake that if they bit someone, they can inject them with this anticoagulant, their saliva, and this drug, and it would keep the person calm. Maybe it would feel really good, make them enjoy being bitten. And it could also put a mark on the person, like on their aura, something only vampires could see that would mark territory. So I had all these really interesting ideas. And venomous vampires seemed so logical to me that I thought for sure somebody else must have done it already. In
Mm.
fact, I started looking in my library to see if I could find a book like that so I could read it because it sounded
Wow.
cool. But I couldn't find anything like that. There wasn't much in my library at all back then about vampires. This was back in the 80s. There weren't that many series out about vampires at that time.
Mm.
And it never occurred to me to write it myself.
Wow.
But I did find Anne Rice's vampire series, which I loved, her Vampire Chronicles. That was the first time I saw something from the vampire's point of view, and I found that interesting.
Interesting.
And I was also very a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on TV. But towards the end of the series, I started thinking I might have done things a little differently than how the writers had. And that started me thinking about different choices writers make. And
Mm.
I started thinking about my own storylines and my own characters, incorporating this Venom idea. And it was just daydreamed. I never really thought about being an author or anything. But
Wow.
one time I started thinking I was going to be depressed that I would forget it all because some of the ideas were really good. So I
Mm.
started writing them down. And before I knew it, this whole story came pouring out. And I realized it was something I really wanted to write out from beginning to end. I had a real story to tell and I wanted to share it.
Wow.
So that's how it all began.
That's an amazing inspiration towards the making of a lovely series, I must say. And I'm so enthralled hearing you talk about how this come to be, the storyline, the little background, the amazing, it's such an amazing one, really. And I want to say thank you very much for running us through this beautiful history lane so we can have a much better understanding of what led you to writing this fantastic series. Thank you, really. And in Lost Reflection, which is the second book in the book series, first trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
we see more of Kane's haunting past. Now, I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
what was it like delving into his backstory and weaving those memories into the present day narrative? I would love your answer to this.
Sure, sure. Um, the Kane's past is mostly told through flashbacks woven into the
Yeah.
progression of the modern storyline.
Mm.
He was turned into a vampire in 1692, and a lot of research went into weaving his fictional existence into history. I was actually a school librarian before I became a full-time author, and I
Interesting.
sucked down a rabbit hole. I like to look up random things, and as the series continues, the cast becomes more diverse, and we meet vampires from all over the world, different times and places. And I've learned a lot about cultures and random history facts
Mm.
in order to write a more believable characters. And I feel like even though the story is paranormal, it's much more believable when it's surrounded by truth, so that you feel like it could have really happened or
Mm.
could really be happening. It makes the paranormal things stand out, but fit in better with the real world around it. So most
Mm.
of the details about Kane when he came to America um, are actually all true, right down to the ship that brought him here, the captain, and its
Mm.
cargo. And most people won't notice that research, but to me, I feel like it's worth the effort because it helps me really round out the character and make the story more believable. So
Mm.
I love doing that.
Wow, that's an amazing style, really. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Now, I want us to go back into factor infatuation. Just for the sake, it's beautiful because I think one of the beautiful things to do about series novel is to make the first series be quite captivating enough that readers would like to see what comes up in the second, the third, and the
sure.
fourth. It is always so particular and fun of first book in the series, as always enthralling, beautiful, awesome. The one with the huge suspense and the fantastic, cliffhanger. Oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. How dare her do that? you know. Now I wanted to ask you, what are some of the themes and subject lines that the would-be reader would be looking forward to exploring in Fata Infatuation?
Sure. Well, like I said, I began this series actually more than 2 decades ago,
Mm.
before there was so much
Wow.
modern fantasy about vampires prevalent. And so at this point, readers might feel like it's a trope they're familiar with because there's so much out there.
Mm.
But Almost Human and Fatal Infatuation takes on twists and turns that explore ideas and situations that are completely unique, even though it's within a familiar kind of storyline that it might still be unexpected. My series, it's very emotional, it's very character driven. Felicity is my main human character. She's a young lady who was very much like myself at that age, and
Mm.
I think she's somebody that a lot of readers can identify with. And my vampire Kane, I wanted him to be different from most of the other vampires I had seen. I
Mm.
was actually the lead vocalist in my church choir at the time.
Interesting.
And during church services, I would think, what would a person of faith, what would their reaction be to being turned into a vampire? I mean, it would be very difficult to deal with, and really, they would struggle. And In literature, I think vampires are an especially wonderful metaphor for exploring things like faith, addiction, ethics, prejudice, a bunch of topics.
Absolutely.
Vampires really embody the persona of anybody who's ever felt outcast, anybody who's ever felt
Mm,
alone and
absolutely.
unable or unwilling to find love because they feel like they don't deserve it, maybe. And I think
Mm,
that's why we can connect with them so strongly.
mm,
So even amidst the excitement of vampires and zombies and werewolves and all these supernatural abilities, my books are a very emotional and spiritual journey as well, I think.
mm.
You
Oh,
know, it's dealing with these things.
oh
It's
wow.
very cathartic to write.
I love your answers to this question. Such an amazing and beautiful. And I
Thank
love
you.
everything you've said so far about the vampire conversation and topic. If you have a copy of it again, I'd like you to raise to the camera, Falter Infatuation, just so you can see what it looks like. If you
Sure.
can pick it up and show it.
Sure.
That's an amazing. And look
Here
at the
it is.
cover. How did you come up with that cover? Who is that? I think
Yeah,
that
you
might be
can
a
almost
character.
see it's hard to see, but there's a little zombie in the background too.
Oh,
But yeah, I do all the covers myself. I've done all of
really?
my cover graphic.
Wow.
Um, the I feel like color is a very strong identifier.
It
I
is.
like to, so I have the whole first trilogy, the books are red. The
Mm,
second trilogy, they're all purple. The third,
mm,
they're all blue,
you.
so that they can really be grouped together
Mm.
visually. Makes
Interesting.
them easier to see.
That's an amazing one, really. I love the progression of this series from the first to the second. And now let's go into in the third book of the Almost Human series, Fox Trilogy, Evolving
Mhm.
Ecstasy. Things become much more complicated emotionally and spiritually for the characters. And I'm
They
really
do.
wondering how exactly they were able to navigate that through. But then, was that always your plan for the hack? Or the characters evolve in a way that surprised you that you never even thought about? I'm curious.
It's actually a little of both. I
Mm.
had the first trilogy outlined from the beginning, and I actually
Oh,
had a plan for the remaining nine books very early on.
interesting.
Um, so I knew how it was going to end and how I wanted the characters to evolve and grow along the way.
Yeah.
And that allows me to make sure that they have the experiences they need to
Nice.
shape them into who I want them to be, and
Yeah.
for me to foreshadow and drop hints for the readers to prepare them a little bit emotionally, even though some of the twists are still unexpected. But the fun part is that good characters take on a life of their own. When you
Mm.
start to write, they have their own way of dealing with things, and when you get to a certain situation, you just know that they're going to do or say something that is not in your plan. They get there and you say, I know this is what they would do, even though it's not what I had planned and it messes everything up.
Mm.
But I have to be true to them and let them do what they're going to do because that's who they are. And I can't, I don't want to mold them to fit into what I had planned. They're going to do what they
Mm.
would do. So I let them have their free reign and do what they want. And it screws everything up, but somehow eventually it twists back to the plot that I had already outlined. And it's
Mm.
funny because the characters, what they do and say, sometimes it works out better than I had originally planned.
Honestly
I
speaking.
almost feel like somehow I have it all worked out in the back of my mind, and then when I get to a later part, I think, oh, that's why they did that. Now it works out better,
You know,
even though I never really imagined it
thought
to begin
about
with,
it.
not consciously, but the big plot points I had all worked out from the start. It's the little detours along the way, though, that make it kind of exciting for me as I'm writing because it's unexpected even for me.
Mm. I think this is one
And I just love that my characters have such big, strong personalities.
Mm, I really do think that
It
this is
makes
one
it
of the
fun.
things that makes literature to be quite fun and beautiful. You've had this thing at the back of your mind, oh, this is how it's going to look, this is how it's going to go. And as you're going on, you're getting the plot over and over again. You get to the point that the character says, oh, sorry, Melanie, I would like to go this way. You want me to go this way, but hold on, let me take this route a bit. And you're like, oh, okay, do whatever you wanted to do, and you
Yep.
continue and continue. and the road still lead back into the actual intention. You were like, oh wow, that's fantastic. I think this one of the beauty of writing,
Yeah.
and everything just date back to me. Be like, sometimes you got to wondering that how exactly did I wrote this book? Because it's fantastically done. You'd be like, I never imagined I could do that. That's amazing. This one of the beauty of writing. The stands that even after the whole thing has been done, it's still become a mystery. Like, oh, I'm shocked. I can't tell. I can't tell how exactly. Well, I knew I wrote it, but I don't know how I did. It's a beautiful. I think it's a beautiful feeling, really. One of the things where that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
I think writers actually need to be praised more for their work. Because imagine the number of ethic, the number of work, the number of research, the number of talent and skill set that goes into making a book. It takes a whole
Yeah.
lot that deserve praise and commendation,
It does.
really.
You're a writer as well. It's a lot. You have to have a lot. You're juggling a lot of different things at once to bring it all together onto
Absolutely.
the page.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you. I also like to ask you because the Almost Human saga has grown well beyond the first trilogy, with each new trilogy expanding the world and diving deeper into your character's journey. Now, what inspired you to continue the story across multiple trilogies, and how do the themes evolve as the series progresses?
Well, I always knew it was going to take four trilogies
Wow.
because the story that was in my head was just too big. It was too epic in scope, and I knew that it was going to take 12 books to tell it.
Wow.
And I was just hoping that I would get that far and readers would hang in with me to get to the end, but I think it's well worth the journey.
Mm.
It's one continuous story following six core characters. Um, so, like the first trilogy, focuses on Kane and Felicity mostly, but there are other characters in it as well. So then the second trilogy, maybe we focus a little more on some of the other characters, and it shifts each time. So the first trilogy introduces my venomous vampires and all our characters.
Mm.
Um, as I said, Felicity is a shy young lady. She's just beginning college, and she's never one to flirt with danger. She's just trying to kind of figure out who she is.
Wow.
And then it's quite a struggle once they meet because romance
Mm.
ensues. So the first trilogy deals with Kane and Felicity, their romance, the obstacles they face, and there are zombies. Fair warning.
Wow.
So there's some action, there's humor, there's drama, there's angst, there's romance. The themes are really about struggling to balance morality and faith and loyalty and love and addiction while allowing yourself to live in a way that you can still be happy, and whether or not all those things can coincide while trying not to let monsters kill you.
Wow.
And so that's the first trilogy. And then in the second trilogy, it moves beyond college, more into adulthood as our characters get a little older. And I
Mm.
wanted to skew it more in an epic urban fantasy uh,
Ah,
direction. The
yeah.
first trilogy is a little more small town. So the second
Mm.
trilogy, the scope broadens. And we learn that there are different breeds of vampires that we hadn't known about before that have some different abilities we hadn't seen yet. Some
Mm.
of them can shapeshift into bats or wolves or into
Mm.
mist. They can fly. And there's a prophecy that says if someone gets turned into a vampire by the blood of all breeds combined, they're
Mm.
considered the united one because they will have the
Mm.
skills of all vampires and they're destined to be a ruler of the vampires. And one of our beloved humans from the first trilogy gets sort of accidentally turned into the united one in the second trilogy. She just wanted to be with her vampire boyfriend, but now she's supposed to be the queen and everybody's trying to kill her.
Mm.
So the themes change a little bit. We move away from college into more mature adulthood. There's still romance and a bit more action than the first trilogy. It's a little more epic urban fantasy and maybe try and save the world while you're at it. So it's a little more of an epic battle type of thing. And then in the third trilogy, there is a pack of werewolves that move into the area.
Mm.
And werewolves and vampires are ancient enemies.
Mm.
So that causes a bit of a problem. And the themes shift again towards idea about overcoming preconceived perceptions,
Mm.
racism, forbidden romance. And our vampires are struggling to battle the werewolves, battle each other, while trying to actually unite everyone for a common cause and get over these preconceived perceptions.
Mm,
And whether or not love can tame the savage beast. Some of the characters also grapple with a desire for vengeance and whether or not getting revenge can coexist with obtaining true happiness. It might be
mm,
satisfying, but sometimes it's just not worth it.
mm.
So,
Oh, wow.
they're kind of big themes, but they're all woven into a story that is relatable and fun and full of action and monsters and exciting stuff.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's an amazing one, really. I'm really intrigued hearing you talk about how all of these theories evolve from the first to the second and how you even had to pull it together. It is so commendable. It is so great. It is such a lot you've done. Very great,
it
really.
is a lot.
Absolutely. I love your answers to this, and it's really commendable. Now, I want us to diversify a little bit because one of the things that interests me most as a writer and also as a reader is to listen to readers' feedback. And you may want to agree with me that one of the things that
Yeah.
makes literature to be quite complex is the fact that it can be interpreted in different ways by different readers based on their opinion. And sometimes some
Yeah.
readers might get the actual message that the author intended writing a novel, and sometimes they might be close to getting the message. Sometimes they might be far, say several kilometers or meters away from getting the actual message. And hilariously, sometimes they might interpret the book upside down and get the whole message wrongly. And this honestly thinking about, how exactly this is going from one part to another. Quite a beautiful one. Now, I wanted to ask you, I'm not quite sure if you've ever experienced this, but then I wanted to ask you, how would you feel whenever readers interpret your work differently or slightly differently from what you actually intended as a writer? How does that make you feel as a storyteller and author?
Well, I mean, I love hearing feedback and different takes on what I've written.
Reading.
I can't say I've ever had feedback from a reader where they seemed completely off base, but I feel like that means I've done my job as a writer, that I've made my intentions clear.
Mm,
But since the story is very character driven, it's usually
mm,
more about how they see the different characters.
absolutely.
Usually, most readers view them as I've intended,
Mm,
but I write in shades of gray. I
mm,
feel like no person is entirely good or entirely bad. Everyone
mm.
is just they're all almost human, even though they're vampires. And
Wow.
they're just making choices based on what they feel is right for themselves in the situation.
Mm,
And you can agree or disagree with their opinions, making them seem like the hero or the villain, but
mm,
everybody's the hero in their own story. So the characters see themselves as doing what they think is right,
mm.
and no one's entirely good or bad. I've actually gotten hate mail about some
Wow.
of the choices I made.
Wow.
But I take that as a compliment because it means the reader was so passionately invested in the series that they had to tell me what was driving them crazy. The hate mail that I've gotten is mostly about, without giving any spoilers,
Yeah.
there is one character I've written that most people like to refer to as an evil bitch, if I'm allowed
Mm.
to say that. But it's funny. I get it. I've written her that way. She's
Mm,
supposed to be like that, but they don't understand her the way that I do.
mm,
And as the series continues and they get to see more of the things that have compelled her to act the way that she does and the
yeah.
things that she's done, they
Yeah.
start to understand her more. And I've had some of those same readers that have written to tell me how much they hate her have written back to say that now she's her favorite character,
Oh, wow.
and they just love it. So it's a lot of fun.
It is.
But my the best interpretation story that I have is that I have two sons who are now adults, young
Mm,
adults. But back when my oldest son was a younger teenager, I he read the first book, and I didn't give him any background or anything. I just said, "Here, if you want to read it, you can read it," and I didn't give him any input. And then he came back to me after to give me his interpretation. And um, as far as that evil bitch character goes, a lot of people ask me, why doesn't Kane just kill her? You know, she should just get rid of her. But my son said, I understand why he doesn't, because it would totally go against his nature and who he is. And he found it very interesting. He compared the characters in my series to the X-Men and said,
Wow.
in the X-Men, there's Professor Xavier and Magneto, and they're enemies and have tried to kill each other on many occasions. But they have a history and a foundation that they understand each other. And in other circumstances, they would be friends. So even though they're on the opposite side of most fights, they're really just passionately trying to get each other to see their point of view. And he
Mm.
said that's how he sees two of my characters, Kane and the evil bitch, Cindy, that they would be friends in other circumstances, and they have a lot in common, and they understand each other, and
Mm.
they're just on opposite sides of a situation. And I that just it blew me away that he had such a great interpretation of it, that he could take it and compare it to his other experiences with other series and things.
Yeah,
And I just found that really interesting.
I am much more intrigued with your son's interpretation. That's a beautiful one. That's a beautiful, well detailed, heavily he digested it, he shoved it in
Yeah.
and brought out all of those things and compared. That's an amazing comparison. That's a very beautiful one. Very amazing one. And thank you so much for this answers to this lovely question. For even you letting us know for the audience of English, this is an amazing one, really. So I want to say thank you once again for this beautiful answers you've got for us. Yeah, it's an amazing one.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I could talk all day. You'll have to shut me up.
Yeah, thank you. And now, apart from the books we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works that you've authored or say currently working on? How much farther are you taking us in this series?
Well, Almost Human has been my life for the last 22 years. So
Mm,
I haven't done anything else. I'm only doing Almost Human. I
mm,
just finished book 9. And once the main 12 novels are complete, I actually have ideas for spin-offs, standalone spin-offs percolating in my head. I have some things jotted in notebooks, little projects and ideas that I've started. I've
mm,
just loved this universe and I love these characters so much. So I haven't written
mm.
anything else, but I am actually currently recording this series for audiobook.
Oh,
I'm doing it as a full production with music and sound effects. And I was a theater kid. I was a drama club kid. So I have acting experience and I'm kind of a control freak. So
mhm.
I'm narrating everything myself because I feel like I've been doing the voices for these characters in my head for two
Mm,
decades, and I would
yeah.
terribly micromanage any voice actor until they hated me if I tried to let somebody else do it. So I'm doing them
Mm.
myself, complete with the accents for my foreigners. And after the show, maybe you can give me a good recommendation for a good sound engineer because I might need a little help with that. But yeah, so that's the other project that I'm working on. While I'm still writing the rest of the books for this series, I'm also recording for sound or audiobook.
I
But
th
I don't want to release them until I'm going to release them in threes
oh,
as trilogies. So I've
oh.
I've just about finished book 1 and I've finished book 1 and book 2, but I'm not going to put them out until I have book 3 all done, and I'll put them all out
Mm.
at once.
That's an amazing
But
one.
it's been a lot of fun.
That's an amazing one. And I bet you, one of the things that I love mostly when it comes to audiobook narration is I love it when it's told exactly by the author themselves. I have this point of view that the last time I shared it on social media, got some people bashing at me and saying, how dare you say that? Da, 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 da. I was like, when it comes to audiobook, I love it when it comes directly from the author, be it in whatever genre you're writing in, be it in, fiction or poetry. So I was like, I consider, it's fine. You can give your book to anybody to narrate it. But in my opinion, I was like, giving it to another narrator is like you giving it to a middleman, and there's a middleman behind the teller and the audience. I'm not hearing it directly from the author. It is not
Right.
raw. It has been refined. It has been there's chemical added to it that I'm not so much. I don't think I'm gonna enjoy it really. But when it comes from the author, you can enjoy the raw, the passion, the tonality of the
Yeah.
actual character. You can feel the anger in
Yeah.
the actual character. You can feel the because there's so much more to it coming directly from the even in
Yeah.
poetry. If I'm reciting a poem, there's some point I want to speak slowly. There's some point I want to raise my voice. There's
Yeah.
some point you can feel the emotion as if my voice is breaking, as if I'm going to cry. Whereas at some point you see me flowing. So I was like, when it comes to the narration, please bet it. It's good you heard directly from the author. It's beautiful. It's raw. It's direct. It's like you going to the farm to pick the farm produce rather than having it
Yeah.
processed through the industry or something. I was like, that's the best for me, really. So it's a beautiful one to know you're
I
narrating.
know the inflection for every line that's I
Mm,
speak all of the dialogue aloud when I'm writing it, and I know
absolutely.
exactly how it needs to sound.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah, it's important.
very important. That's an amazing one. Thank you, really. Now, I wanted to ask you, as a published author that you are, what sort of advice would you give writers who are struggling with publishing a book? And also, where can interested viewers get a copy of your books from?
Um, Honestly, I'm not sure I have advice that would be relevant to authors today because so much has changed since I
Yes.
started this journey. I started, over 20 years ago, and self-publishing is so accessible now. But when I started, I had to learn to do everything all by myself.
Mm,
Luckily, I have my teaching degree and my science degree, my master's in library science, so that helped me. But and once my series began to get some recognition, I did start getting offers from some publishers, but most of them wanted me to change things in the story, and
mm,
I refused to do that.
wow.
So right now, I'm still self-published. I do everything myself, and I even do my own cover art, like I said. I would tell aspiring authors, don't try to write according to what people tell you is the trend or the market. Write
Mm,
what resonates with you,
absolutely.
because they say, like you were saying about the emotion, no tears in the author, no tears in the reader. They need to
Mm,
feel what you're feeling.
absolutely.
And if you're just trying to write what you think they want to hear, that's not going to resonate. You need to
Mm,
write from your heart, you
mm,
know.
mm.
I've
That's a fantastic.
I started I never had ambitions of being an author to begin with. So I didn't know anything about being an author. I
Mm,
just had a story inside me that needed to get out.
mm.
But now I've been blessed with readers all over the world. So I guess I found my calling. But when I first started, self-publishing was terribly taboo. Everybody told me, don't self-publish. Nobody will want to read it. Nobody will come anywhere near you. Indie
Mm.
author was not a fond term back then.
Honestly
So
speaking.
I tried going the traditional route, but actually, it's funny. I sent a lot of queries and excerpts to publishers and agents, and I got a lot of rejections, so many rejections. But my favorite was there was an agent who told me nobody wants to read about vampires anymore. Anne Rice has done it to death.
Mm.
And about 2 years later, Twilight came out, and vampires exploded again. But I had kept writing just because it was what I wanted to write.
Mm.
And I think that's very important. I wasn't trying to follow a trend. I was doing what felt right to me. And
Mm.
I'm glad I never gave up trying and write that I kept writing because it made me happy. But I wish I had self-published sooner because
Mm.
I could have self-published back in 2004 before Twilight even came out. But I
Honestly.
didn't because I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. And so I
Mm.
just kept writing for me. And then later in 2007, when I was getting my master's in library science, one of my professors mentioned this new invention that was coming out called the Kindle.
Yeah.
So I looked into that and I submitted my books to Amazon. And my first trilogy was actually on Kindle when it was first revealed for the
Mm.
rollout. And that's how I got started. So
Mm.
uh, I don't know what to tell new self-published authors as far as following in my footsteps because every journey is different and mine certainly was strange, but
Mm.
I'm just glad that I never gave up and that I'm
Mm.
I'm just doing my own thing. I may not be a bestseller yet, but I have a lot of readers who really love my work,
Mm.
and I'm so glad I can share it with them. And I've found a way to to be able to share these characters with
Mm.
everyone. And there are people who love them as much as I do. So that's very rewarding. So my books now are available on Amazon, of course. You can also get them through my website, which is melanienowak.com. And they're also in bookstores worldwide. If you don't see them, ask for them. And you can also find on my website interesting tidbits about the characters, how I've named them, how I came up with their names, why I've given them the names they have. And there's character interviews and news about upcoming releases and events, book signings, and things that are coming up because I love to meet readers and hear what other people have to say.
Mm.
So I'm always up for book chat. People can look for me on Facebook if they would like under my real name, Melanie Nowak.
Mm.
And I love hearing from readers. My email is also in the front and back of both my books. It's woodwitchdame at AOL.com. So I love to get emails, even if it's hate mail. It's okay. But I love to hear from readers. I get a lot of really good mail too. I've only gotten a little bit of hate mail, but it's a lot of fun to have book conversations with readers
Honestly,
and
it
discuss
is.
characters.
And first of all, I must say that going back to your answer on advice, I must say that that's a trunkload of advice you've given. Very amazing. I find it to be quite inspiring, even. And I love the way you answer them, following on how you started, how you had this book published, what you had to do, the Amazon chat room, the invitation. It's a beautiful blend, a beautiful roller coaster that I find to be quite inspiring, really. And I'm very sure even viewers of this interview or the would-be author and writer would also find it quite inspiring. Thank you for that more
No,
particularly. And also, I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get
oh,
a
great.
copy of Melanie Nowak book directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on our website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to Melanie's social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much,
Great.
Melanie,
Great.
for accepting the invitation to join me in this fantastic conversation around your amazing series. I must say this is so fun. I've learned a lot. I took some notes I'm gonna get back to later on. You know, quite
Great.
beautiful. And thank you very much for joining me in
Thank
conversation with today.
you. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. I'm
Yeah,
so excited to be here. I love your show. I'm happy to be a part of it now.
thank you. Really.